Ready to dive into the wild world of U.S. politics? Let's uncover the secrets that could shape our democracy's future. 1. Impact of the January 6th Capitol riot. The January 6, 2021, attack on the U.S. Capitol highlighted deep political divisions and raised questions about the stability of democratic institutions. Investigations and trials of those involved continue to fuel discussions on accountability, extremism, and the rule of law. Can the U.S. fully recover from the shock of this event, and what measures are being taken to prevent something similar in the future? 2. Election integrity and misinformation. The 2020 presidential election saw widespread allegations of voter fraud, despite lack of evidence. This has led to declining trust in the electoral process for many Americans. How can the U.S. restore public confidence in its elections, especially with growing concerns about foreign interference and the spread of misinformation on social media? What reforms could improve transparency and security in future elections? 3. Gerrymandering and representation. Gerrymandering, the manipulation of electoral district boundaries for political advantage, continues to be a major issue affecting fair representation in Congress. How is the practice undermining democratic principles, and what steps are being taken to address it? Some states have adopted independent redistricting commissions to combat gerrymandering, but will this become a national trend? 4. Polarization and political extremism. Political polarization has reached unprecedented levels, with both major parties moving toward more extreme positions. This creates gridlock in Congress and hinders productive debate. How can the U.S. reduce polarization and encourage bipartisan cooperation? Are there strategies to curb the rise of political extremism on both sides of the spectrum? Can a more moderate, centrist movement emerge, or will division continue to grow? 5. The role of the Supreme Court. The increasingly politicized nature of Supreme Court nominations and decisions has led to debates about the court's role in democracy. Should reforms, such as term limits or expanding the number of justices, be considered to prevent future politicization? How will key rulings on issues like abortion, voting rights, and healthcare shape U.S. democracy in the coming years? 6. Voting rights and access. There has been a surge in state-level legislation focused on restricting or expanding voting access. Some laws have been criticized as discriminatory or intended to suppress voter turnout, especially among minority communities. What is the future of voting rights in the U.S.? Will efforts to restrict or expand voting access lead to more intense legal battles, or can there be a bipartisan agreement on protecting voters' rights? Should the Voting Rights Act be strengthened to ensure fair access to the ballot box? 7. Campaign finance reform. The influence of money in politics, especially after the Supreme Court's Citizens United ruling, has increased the power of wealthy donors and political action committees, PACs. How can campaign finance reform efforts limit the sway of money over politics and ensure that elected officials represent the interests of all citizens, not just the affluent? Will there be renewed efforts to overturn Citizens United, or is this the new normal in U.S. elections? 8. The role of social media. Social media platforms have amplified political discourse, but also contributed to the spread of misinformation and polarization. Should the government regulate social media platforms to curb misinformation, hate speech, and election interference? What are the risks to free speech if such regulations are implemented? How can social media be leveraged to strengthen democratic engagement rather than undermine it? 9. The future of the two-party system. The two-party system has increasingly frustrated many voters who feel that neither party fully represents their views. This dissatisfaction has fueled calls for more viable third-party or independent candidates. Is the two-party system sustainable, or will the U.S. eventually move toward a multi-party system? Could ranked choice voting or other reforms provide voters with more choices and reduce the winner-takes-all nature of U.S. elections? 10. Youth engagement and the next generation. Younger voters are increasingly becoming a significant political force with strong opinions on issues like climate change, social justice, and economic inequality. How will the involvement of young voters and activists shape the future of U.S. democracy? Will they push for more progressive policies, or will their engagement ebb as they age? Will the generational shift lead to a transformation in how politics is conducted, with a focus on issues that resonate more with younger generations? 11. Democratic reforms and institutional changes. Proposals for democratic reforms, such as abolishing the Electoral College, instituting term limits for Congress, or implementing national popular vote laws, are gaining traction. Will these reforms be enough to strengthen U.S. democracy, or do they pose risks of further destabilization? Should the U.S. consider major changes to its democratic institutions to ensure they remain functional in the 21st century? If you think U.S. democracy is a roller coaster ride, wait until you see what's coming next. Buckle up for the wild twists and turns of political drama, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated on all the latest insights and discussions.